They didn't just smash a boat, they destroyed the last thing I ever built with my son before he died. When I came back that night and saw my yacht torn to pieces drifting in a rainbow of oil slick, it felt like someone ripped Michael right out of my chest all over again. And the worst part. The HOA president stood there smiling, like she'd just won a prize. She had no idea she'd just started a war she couldn't win. For 15 years, my mornings were the same coffee black and a seat on the little deck overlooking my slip at Lake Paxton. The Maggie J bobbed gently in the water, a 38-foot steel hull cruiser, every weld and bolt set by my own hands alongside my boy. Michael was Navy, learned more working with me on that boat than he ever did in the academy, or so he used to say. After we lost him overseas, the Maggie J became more than a boat. She was a memorial, a floating church, a way to keep him close. Sitting in his captain's chair, I could still hear him laugh when I dropped a wrench or feel him roll his eyes when we argued over engine mounts. That boat was everything. So when I found that notice taped to her bow, it felt like someone had spat on his grave. A violation from the Lake Paxton HOA Community Appearance Standards. My boat, the one my grandfather secured a slip for 60 years back, was suddenly an eyesore. The letter was signed by their president, Tricia Landon. I met her that same week, dressed in spotless tennis whites, barking orders at a guy scribbling on a clipboard. When I introduced myself, she sneered, "Oh, you must be the owner of that eyesore." She said it like she was scraping gum off her shoe. I kept calm. I'd spent 30 years as a marine engineer solving problems without blowing up. I showed her deeds, riparian rights, the original county permits. She waved her hand and said, "Obsolete. We control the shoreline now. Move it in 30 days, or we will." I tried to play their game. I presented everything at their board meeting, calm and professional photographs of the construction, even logs of the boat's upkeep. They laughed me out of the room, called it a floating shed, denied my appeal without even glancing at the paperwork. A few days later, I had appointments at the VA clinic, an all-day affair. By the time I came home that night, the smell of diesel hung in the air like a warning. I walked down to the dock and my heart just collapsed. The Maggie J was gone. In her place, twisted metal and splintered wood floated among oil and foam. A demolition barge sat nearby, crew packing up torches still warm. And on the dock lay the hand-carved nameplate Michael had made Maggie J split right down the middle. I picked it up and felt the sharp oak dig into my hand. That was the moment the grief turned cold. For days I sat at the empty slip, staring at nothing, drinking coffee that tasted like ash, wondering if this was it. Maybe I was the fool clinging to the past. Maybe Tricia was right. It was just an old boat. There were moments I thought about giving in, selling the property, moving somewhere quiet. I even caught myself whispering, maybe I should have let it go. That was the lowest I'd been since the war. But an engineer doesn't just look at broken parts, he traces the failure back to the source. I dug out old files from a steel cabinet I hadn't opened in decades. Inside, among grease-stained papers, I found something I'd forgotten: Paxton Marine Services, LLC, the company I'd set up when contracting with the Port Authority years ago. And tucked inside, a 99-year lease for the submerged land under the Marina. Not just the slip, the entire section of lake bed. My breath caught. They hadn't just demolished my boat. They'd trespassed on my property to do it. I called an old friend, Don Beeman, retired county surveyor. We spread maps across my kitchen table, measured lines, traced parcels. He looked up, grinning like a wolf. "Jack, you don't just own the slip. You own the mud. They're fancy new docks. They're sitting right on top of your property." I sent cease and desist letters to Tricia and every board member. At their next meeting, she mocked me in front of the crowd, waving my letter like a joke. "He thinks he owns the lake," she sneered. The room laughed. But while she was putting on a show, I was reactivating my LLC with the county reinstating commercial marina status, recertifying slips for mixed-use leasing. I leased 2 slips to a young paddleboard rental couple for $1 a month. Gave slip, won the prime dock spot to the local fire department for their rescue boat. Suddenly, my section of the marina wasn't just mine, it was public service. Meanwhile, the HOA ramped up their bullying. They fined neighbors for flower pots, banned kids from fishing, sent fake violation letters. Tension spread through the community like poison. I began to wonder if I was dragging everyone into a fight they couldn't win. My house was being papered with forged notices, threats piled up, and at night I heard footsteps on the docks. I felt hunted. Maybe I'd pushed too far. Maybe I should have just walked away. Then the cameras I set up caught him. Marty Kellogg, Trisha's clipboard enforcer, sneaking along the dock at 2 a.m. with bolt cutters. He knelt at the fireboat's bowline trying to cut her loose. Cutting a 70,000-pound emergency vessel adrift in the dark isn't just vandalism, it's attempted sabotage. I didn't yell. I didn't run. I called 911. When the deputies arrived, Marty was still working the rope. The flashing lights froze him like a rat in a trap. That was the turning point. The next HOA meeting was packed standing room only. I walked to the podium. No papers, no maps. I looked straight at Trisha. You fined us for flower pots. You threatened kids for fishing. You demolished my boat. Starting tomorrow, I'll be sending you an invoice for using my docks. Gasps rippled through the room. Then the back doors opened. Dawn walked in with a massive survey map on a tripod, followed by my lawyer David Cole and the county waterways officer in full uniform. A local reporter's camera light snapped on blinding Trisha where she sat. Cole laid it all out: the lease, the active LLC, the property lines. He presented the demolition order signed by Trisha, authorizing destruction of a vessel on land she never owned. The demolition contractor himself stood up, file in hand. I was told it was HOA property. I checked the county records. It wasn't. This gentleman is correct. The room erupted. Shouts of "thieves" and "give us our money back" drowned out Trisha's gavel. The officer confirmed on mic. All HOA enforcement on this marina is invalid. The roar shook the walls. Trisha went pale, then red, sputtering about lies and lawyers. But the board crumbled under the weight of evidence. Residents turned on them, furious. She grabbed her purse and fled out a side door, booed out of her own kingdom. The board resigned within days, their lawyers begging for settlement. In court, it was swift restitution of $180,000 for the Maggie J. immediate resignation of the entire board, refunds of all bogus fines, and control of the docks handed to a resident-led committee under my LLC. The judge's gavel came down like a hammer on Trisha's empire. And that was it. The woman who mocked me, who called my son's memorial a shed, walked away, disgraced, her power gone, her HOA dissolved. She tried to break me with petty rules and demolition crews. Instead, she lost everything. Sometimes standing your ground isn't about pride, it's about knowing some fights are worth showing up for.